Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we are talking about another book by Byung-Chul. This one is called In the Swarm, Digital Prospects. One of the relatively earlier works by Han, translated and published in English. This one was published by MIT Press in 2017. It took me such a long time, too long to finish reading it, and I abandoned it so many times. So as a result, there are earlier chapters here in this collection that I've read 5-6 times, and there are chapters towards the end that I've read once. And it seems like every single page is earmarked because of how slowly I progressed through the book and how many times I put it down and picked it back up. I think that's the result of this book not being as good as some of the other books that I've read by him. So my favorite among the ones that I've read so far remains The Burnout Society, that is already reviewed on the channel. You might have seen it. So I've reviewed The Burnout Society, The Transparency Society, and The Agony of Eros, which is about love, narcissism, depression, and related topics. This one is about digital media platforms, and the effect of various phenomena that digital media enables, and how they are transforming our ways of life, ways of thinking, ways of engaging with each other and with what we are perceiving and thinking about. Some good things are taken away, according to Han, and some bad things are added to how we live our lifestyles. I think, as some other people have pointed out, that Han is not very accurate in his assessment. He's not very precise. He overgeneralizes. He's a little bit simplistic, too simplistic, and too pessimistic. It's like seeing one episode, having one bad experience with social media, or looking at one negative, unpleasant phenomenon, and then generalizing that, making that into a universal law and something that is here to to stay forever. Like one Twitter shitstorm, for example, that maybe he saw and he was a part of, or some people attacked somebody that he liked, and he just thought, oh my God, this is how we are going to live from now on. The Twitter crowd, the unthinking crowd, the unthinking, shitstorm, as he calls it. So that's one problem, the problem of overgeneralizing. Another problem is, I think he is looking at social media platforms through the perspective of someone who is not super engaged with the rest of the world, with the rest of society and reality. For example, an academic. The way an academic engages with social media, with Twitter, for example, is very different from the way a working class person engages with Twitter. Because an academic is not intimately involved with all of society, their perception of reality might be too much colored by what happens on Twitter. But somebody who has to get out there and do things to make money, like clean the floor, clean toilets, serve people, serve food to people for a living, to deal with people at work, deal with a boss, make sales calls. For that kind of person, their engagement, if they have any time left to be on Twitter, they might not even have any time to spare. If they do have some time to go on Twitter, to go on Facebook, it's not going to color their view of reality as much as it's going to affect an academic or a scholar, less engaged, secluded person's view of reality. So that's another reason I think he's overgeneralizing. He himself is a scholar. He's not super engaged with the non-academic, non-scholarly side of society. He might be aware of them, but he's not intimately in touch and engaged with them. So if you allow me to use this slightly harsh word, he's hallucinating a little bit. He's hallucinating things that are not as strictly true. They don't apply as strictly as he's arguing. But I think the book is still worth reading and worth thinking about because of two reasons. One reason is that the problems that he's identifying, even though they are not as general as they might not be as general as he is making them to be, they might still apply to particular cases. I can apply some of his insights and observations about how I relate to social media, how much I let social media extend its reach into my awareness and shape the way I think, the way it removes those spaces of pause and deliberation and makes me more impulsive than I would be without my engagement with social media. So in particular cases, I think following Han's line of thought can be very instructive because he's identifying traps that may or may not apply to our situation. The second reason is his way of thinking, even though he might not be correct, but reading the book is a great way of making his thinking, his style of thinking, visible to us. Across the essays in this collection, he is identifying two sides, a good side and a bad side. And each of those sides, the good side and the bad side, are associated with a whole bunch of concepts and attributes and features. And social media, according to him, the digital media is moving us away from the good side and towards the bad side. Okay, so what are these concepts associated with these two sides? On the bad side, we have too much proximity. Everything seems near. There's no distance. There is too much immediacy. There's no delay. You want something, you immediately say it, or you express it, or you buy it, whatever. So there's too much impulse at this level of, at the scale of a crowd that results in shitstorm, a dramatic aggregation of voices that are all attacking something or someone. There is pure affect. We are still talking about what is on the bad side. There's pure affect, so all feelings and no action, no meaningful change. This affect that social media, digital media enables, it's a very impotent affect. It's a very impotent kind of feeling because it does not enable meaningful action. There's, with that, an absence of responsibility. We have too many opinions, too many things to express, but we are not responsible for anything. There is too much exteriority. Everything that we show, everything that we say, it's everything that we identify with are outside of us. There's no attention to character development. We also identify too much with types. We want to make profiles and typify ourselves and other people. The kind of action that Han describes in some of these essays, he makes a contrast between manual action, which is more complex, and tapping with your finger. When you tap with your finger, you have so much more limit around what you're doing. What you're doing is so much more limited. You have an option of A, B, and C. You just tap on the options presented on the screen. Finally, on the bad side, we have an excessive amount of consumerism, consuming, and entertaining. And what characterizes entertainment is that there is no pause in it. There is no rest in entertainment. It's ongoing and it's restless. Now, contrast that bad side with the good side, what we are moving away from, according to Han. The good features of how human life should be. So distance between people. You have your own space. You have your privacy. With distance, or associated with distance, is respect. There's silence, things that you don't talk about, or moments that you don't feel with words or sounds. Associated with that is the idea of charisma. Charisma is a force or a kind of agent that can invite us and compel us to be silent, to give space. There is space for meaningful action, for responsibility. Because there's delay, there's room for reflection, there's room for cultivation of interiority, privacy. There is the interplay of light and shadow. So some things are visible, some things are not visible, as opposed to digital media and the internet age where there is radiation. Radiation is supposed to make everything transparent. That's very different from that interplay between light and shadow. Again, on the good side of human civilization and human society, we have the chance to be nobody. What does that mean? It means not being a type, being free from all the type-based ways of thinking about ourselves and each other, the obsession with our profiles. There is an intimate contact with reality, and reality is solid. It has its own laws that you cannot endlessly negotiate with the laws of nature. There is this solid gaze of the other human being or other agent animal. That gaze that you cannot deny is another subjectivity outside of you. There is that richer way of acting with your hands and with your body. There's resting from entertainment with pause, with distancing yourself, and above everything else, the idea of citizenry, being responsible citizen, responsible for a community outside of you. The last chapter here in the Swarm collection is called Psychopolitics, and that is the title of the following book. I think it was published after this on the same year, but after In the Swarm, this is the book that I'm planning to read now. If you have read In the Swarm, let me know if it is also your, similar to my experience, if it is also your least favorite work by Han, and why. As always, I'm curious to hear your input. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon page, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.